Please be seated. Boy, we haven't sung that for a long time. And I want to thank my husband for helping me with some of these furnishings. I've had a bit of a backache this week, and I know a lot of you also suffer with that, and I feel your pain. So it's no fun, but I'm okay here on this stool. Well, our tradition values service perhaps more than any other core value or practice that we embrace. I think that it's the one thing that even when our theological gap is wide in the district and in the denomination, we can all gather around serving one another. This has been tangibly evident in what we know as the disaster relief auction held locally each September, where congregations of all theological persuasions work together to support relief efforts around the world. We even claim that passion and that commitment each week right here as we remind ourselves and others that we are about peace, service, and openness to all. And so we chose the theme service for these first 3 weeks of February to inspire and to spur one another to deeds of service. Last week, Pastor Naomi and a team of folks who shared their experiences by video got us off to a great start as we heard about servants right here in our very midst. Next Sunday, Pastor Jason will preach, and we'll have the opportunity, and you heard about that during announcements, to literally participate in a variety of service projects together. It'll be hands-on, so don't miss it. And this morning, sandwiched in between two services on serving one another, I thought it would be helpful to take another look at love. After all, woven tightly into the fabric of our service are threads of love. And Tuesday is Valentine's Day. You know, love matters. Maybe it matters more than ever these days when so much around us seems so unloving. It's been quite a week. Violence and injustice, natural disasters, there are deep divides in our communities, across the society, and even in the church. Crude language, lack of respect, and dignity for the other can seem the prevailing norm of the day. And then along comes Valentine's Day, skipping toward us from just around the corner like a schoolgirl with pigtails, with sweet, maybe naive gestures of flowers and chocolates, cards of friendship, expressions of love, and even pink teddy bears. Did I mention chocolate? When it seems that love these days gets the short end of the stick, here comes Valentine's Day. And here we are, as followers of Jesus, as people of the way, we are called to love. We are here because we were created by love, in love, and for love. My favorite contemporary author, John Pavlovitz, reminds us that we, as followers of Jesus, have one job, and that is to love. In Scripture, we find these words as Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus. Lead a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And the author of the fourth gospel recorded Jesus as saying this to his followers: I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Interestingly, one of my commentaries had this to say about this word, love. This kind of Christian love was something so new that Christian writers had to invent a new word for it, or at least they had to take a word which was very unusual in the Greek, agape. It is unlike other words that translate love. We have eros, or sexual love, philia, indicating warm affection, almost like a friendship, and storge, used with family affection. Agape is different than these. The real meaning of agape is unconquerable benevolence. Agape is the power to love, seeking nothing but the highest good for every person, without exception. It's fierce. That's God's good news. And we are called to practice the way of love. Father Richard Rohr, author and retreat leader, gives the church a challenge. He says, the church's prime contribution to humanity can be shifted from teaching correct beliefs or orthodoxy to practicing the way of love as Jesus taught, orthopraxy, or right practices, then our whole understanding and experience of church would be transformed. How often has our orthodoxy, or our beliefs, trumped orthopraxy, or our practice? Rohr continues, what I believe can and should happen is that tens of thousands of congregations will become what I call incubators or studios, or yes, schools of love, teaching people to live a life of love from the heart, for God, for all people, no exceptions, and for all creation, with love as the high aim. We at E-Town Church of the Brethren seem to have a love groove thing going on here. There's a lot of love in this congregation. We see it in our care for one another and as that care spills out and into the broken world. And others see it too from outside the congregation. Many of us remember Bethleen Bradford, one of our previous administrative office staff, who lost a long battle with cancer a few years ago. Bethleen had remarked time and again about how loving this congregation is. Even though she was a member elsewhere, it was the gestures of love of this body of sisters and brothers that touched her deeply. And hers is but one of many, many stories that we pastors are privileged to hear and to witness. Yes, indeed, love matters, and we are called to be a school of love where we learn and practice, better prepared to serve God and to serve one another. In the school of love, kindness matters. For the Apostle Paul, as written in his letter to the Galatians, kindness is right up there as an ideal for the people of God. Kindness is one of the fruits of the Spirit, those pillars of character, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, all evidence of mature faith and deep character. And the importance of kindness is universal. The Dalai Lama has said, "My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness." Kindness is not only good for the recipients of the acts of kindness, it is also good for those who initiate them. When we are kind to people around us, we typically feel good about ourselves in a good and healthy and balanced way. Our brains release increased levels of dopamine, and our bodies release more oxytocin, a hormone directly related to our cardiovascular health. Kindness is good for the heart. And a number of studies link kindness and good relationships to slowing down the aging process. That's not a bad side effect. A few less wrinkles for a few kind words. Kindness matters not only in terms of our health. Kindness is contagious from a social standpoint and causes us to cooperate more, and it strengthens our sense of connection and fosters strength in our families, in our communities, and even in society as a whole. Imagine the rippling effect of kindness in this world. In the school of love, listening matters. We are trained in the art of making a strong case for our point of view, and many of us have learned to listen, not so much to understand the other as to be able to offer a counterpoint. Our Buddhist friends offer this suggestion, this question: are you listening or just preparing to speak? So often, in a rush to argue, we have lost the art of listening. Are we really listening, or are we just reloading? Winston Churchill said that courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Listening means to truly understand the other person, not listening to agree or disagree, but simply listening to understand. Paul Tillich, philosopher and theologian, writes, "The first duty of love is to listen. Listening is one of the highest forms of caring." And David Augsburger, a renowned Mennonite teacher and youngest brother of our own Anne Good, says that being listened to is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. When we choose to listen deeply, we discover new ways of hearing each other's hearts. maybe even the other's encounter of God, that perhaps we will learn more about wonders and mysteries of our own faith when we listen, really listen to others, even those with whom we will never fully agree. Then we will know more fully the unity to which God calls us, a unity so large, a love so expansive, and a mutual encounter so riveting that we find new ways of healing ourselves and our communities. Even in our families, when we pastors meet with a couple in preparation for marriage, we practice mirroring, where one person shares a time they felt happy or sad or disappointed. Then the other person repeats back what they heard, not only with their ears, but what they heard with their heart. And the conversation goes back and forth until both people feel fully and completely heard. One couple recently shared that they put the mirroring tool to work right away. They had to make a legal decision concerning their upcoming marriage and converse back and forth until both felt heard, and they reached a mutually acceptable decision. In the school of love, unity matters. We are called to unity, not uniformity. Unity in that we can agree to not agree, yet find creative ways to move ahead together. Our diversity can be a great strength if we're willing to work at it. One of my favorite stories is about a man named Moses. Shortly after Dave and I were married, we received a visit from our elderly friend, kind, gentle, wise. Well into his 80s, Moses Chu, an immigrant from China, was a local businessman who supplied Lancaster County soybeans to Chinatown in New York City. Moses extended his best wishes to us as newlyweds, and then he asked, "Baby coming yet?" Well, I'm sure after blushing, we politely responded that no baby was on the way. It was clear that children and family were very important to Moses, and he just wanted to encourage us. Over the next few years, whenever we'd see Moses, he would always ask, "Baby coming yet?" And our reply was always the same, until, much to Moses' delight and interest, a baby was on the way, for real. After our daughter was born, Moses again extended his heartfelt congratulations and then asked, "Another baby coming yet?" We had hardly mastered leak-proof rubber pants and breastfeeding, and another baby was not on our radar. But then Moses explained. He said, "Children polish each other." So we remembered Moses' wise advice, and when our first daughter was 6 years old and beginning the first grade, our fourth daughter was born. 4 of a kind and a full house, for sure. And polish each other? They did. And sometimes we were even polished in the process. We polish one another as together we live in community. Our strength is in our diversity. It's sometimes messy, seldom neat. And we heard that message from Jim Grossnickel-Batterton, our district board chair, when he preached here just a few weeks ago. Unity and diversity. It's a beautiful thing. Well, in the school of love, action matters. Serving matters. The Church of the Brethren, and this congregation in particular, takes seriously the call to live our faith through action, believing that we are the hands and the feet and the voice of Jesus in this world. That is evidenced by the many ways that we are compelled to serve one another, to work at peace and justice for all, feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick, welcoming the stranger among us, being a voice for the voiceless, finding all people, near and far, to be our very own neighbors, and loving as we are loved. Let's make our voices for justice and peace heard loud and clear. In this school of love, we learn to practice peace, service, and openness to all. And in this school of love, we find a wideness in God's mercy and a depth in God's love. And drawing upon that mercy and depth, we serve one another. That is the way of love. It's in our DNA.